us on the Sports Show, time to talk track and field. So we thought, let's get one of the superstar up-and-comers in South Australia. So let's get Jess McManus in, of course, who won a gold just recently in the 1500 and a silver in the 800. Jess, thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, let's talk about your 1500 first, Jess. Now, we know it was the Oceania champs. They're in Mackay, so nice and warm for you, 1500.
Yeah,
last
humid.
100 metres, where were you?
Well, I was actually behind coming into the last 100, and I'd sort of been sitting with the other girl all the way around, the other Australian, and then, last 100, something came over me and I had a really strong finish and I managed to pull away, winning by a couple of seconds.
They talk about second wins. You talk about that a lot. He got his second win or something like that. But that's the feeling, isn't it? That's the feeling you get. Like you would have had that feeling that I could run another 1500.
Oh, I don't know
when
about
you
that,
took off. But you know what I'm saying? You did not
definitely.
feel any tired or...
Yeah, the adrenaline just comes in.
Bang, and away you go.
Yeah.
And did you feel that the lass that was in front got a bit of a shock when you went past?
I think so. In the national championships, I sort of did similar tactics. So she ran in that as well, the Australian, and we ran around together and then sort of I did a similar thing and had a stronger finish than she did. So I think she probably wasn't super surprised, but yeah, she definitely tried to go with me, but yeah, just didn't have the legs in her.
The other one they talk about, Jess, is the kick. You know, they're going to have a kick at some stage. This is where they kick and go. Is there a time for you when you work with your coaches? Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, so that's a big thing I think about because I have quite a strong speed element to my racing. So in the middle distance races, so 800s and 1500s, that kick is really important, and it's when you go that matters and how hard you go when you go. So sometimes, depending on the race, that might be 200 metres out for me. Sometimes it's 150. Sometimes it's coming into the home straight. But it also just depends on how you feel in the race.
It's a feel for you more than a set plan going in.
Yeah, you can have a plan going in, but you never know what other people are going to do.
Yeah.
Like there's 8 other girls in the race usually, and you don't know what they're going to do. So you got to think on the run.
The 800 and 1500 always been your distance? Have you? Because I think as an athlete if I was a runner, I'd only run the 100 metre. That's not very far.
You'll be in the 8 metre, mate.
8 metres. 8 metres, mate. But has it always been your distance?
Yeah, so I sort of started out doing little athletics. So at little athletics, you do all the events, you do the throwing, you do the jumping, you do everything. My favourite event there was usually the 400 and the 800, sort of got longer as I grew up. And I sort of got into really running competitively at cross country. So I went and got second in my state champs when I was 10 years old, and that's sort of what set it off for me. So I've done a lot of cross country work in the winter, and then I focus more on the 800 and the 1500 in the summer.
Okay. Good decision, Jess. No one could like the 400. Seriously, no one could like the 400.
Yeah, it's a bit of a love-hate with the 400.
It's a shocker, isn't it? It is a shocker, the 400.
It's great to run,
I'd love to watch
afterwards.
it. I'd love not to go in it.
Exactly right.
Hey, you mentioned there about the cross country. So you have a little crossover. We were talking before you came on about you're just moving into that phase now to do the cross country running.
Yeah.
Is it hard the first couple of weeks from the training you've been in then to the longer distance of cross country?
Definitely. So my training sort of goes, I go through the track season and then I have a couple of weeks off because you can't keep going for years and years without having a bit of a break. And coming back from that break, we try and get build up our fitness. So those next sort of 3 weeks, it's like longer sessions, and they're usually pretty tough because you just don't have the fitness space because that's not the training we've been doing. But yeah, once we get past those first few weeks, then it's all good, but yeah, tough. Just
for the viewers, just give us an idea of when you're in your 1500 training, what the longest distance you would run in that period as opposed to the training in the cross country. What's the distance?
Yeah, so the actual training sessions, that's where the distance changes. So I usually do a 2K warm-up, 2K cool-down. That's set across the whole year. But then...
As you do, Beth.
The actual training usually involves intervals, but in total it sort of comes to like 4Ks in the summer and more like 6Ks in the winter. So it picks up a bit.
Where do we do the cross-country training in Adelaide? Where do you go?
I just do it over at McKinnon Parade in North Adelaide by the city. There's just a 2K loop that goes around there, so lots of training there.
Is that a cross-country...
No, it's not we don't have a lot of cross-country facilities in South Australia, obviously. We don't have a lot of hills and stuff, and it's logistically hard to get out to those while I'm still at school. But yeah, for weekend runs, we'll sometimes go to like Belair or down to the beach, and we'll do lots of different trainings there.
Yeah, so if say you were made the cross-country state champs and they were in Melbourne or something like that, you'd have to be running into some hills.
Yeah, so there's a few different spots, like even in the city, that there's just roads that we use that are quite steep, and we run up them. And then, whenever we get the chance to actually race cross-country in South Australia, it's always good to practice the hills there.
Okay.
Jess, a silver in the 800, gold in the 1500.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes as an athlete, you're sitting there into those races and you're thinking, this is the one I reckon I'll do my best in. Did you think it was going to be the 1500 or the 8?
I didn't think it was going to be the 1500.
Yeah.
So, for the past few years, my 800s have been really, really strong. I've sort of struggled with the 1500s having a bit of consistency. Find a few races I was just not really in the right headspace for the 1500, but then because I didn't put as much pressure on myself in the 1500 because I was more focused on the 800, I think that's what sort of allowed me to run as well as I did.
What's your home club?
Port Adelaide
Port
Athletics
Adelaide.
Club.
Well, don't all the champs come from there, don't they? All come down that way, Phil.
Pretty close to it.
Pretty close to it.
There is a good route to come from there, no doubt.
There is. You have an issue down there with your track at the moment, or is it?
Oh no, the track at Port Adelaide's all good. So there's just 100 metres there, but it's the Athletics SA track that I'm redeveloping. So that'll be really good next season.
Do you notice a growth in athletics down at Port Adelaide?
Yeah, definitely. At Port Adelaide, they have a really strong Indigenous program.
Yeah.
So they try and get lots of kids in through that, and they've got their coaching there. But I don't actually do most of my training with Port Adelaide with the club. I train with a group called Team Tempo.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not an athletics club, it's a training group, and it's got lots of really good senior runners like Jess Stenson now, and a few other people who have been to the Olympics. It's pretty cool.
So, Jess, you go to Westminster, you train at Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
How often do you and your coach get together a week for your training?
We get together twice a week, so Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, and then obviously at races, and sometimes we'll meet up other sides to just plan things.
Okay, so he's got a program set out for you, so two nights you work with him, the other nights you've got to do it yourself.
Yeah, so all of my training sessions my coach is at, but then my jog sessions I sometimes do at school with some of my friends and catch up, and my brother also runs as well, so he's good to run with in my jogs.
Well, Jess, you're certainly on the right trajectory to do a lot of special things for yourself and for South Australia. So fantastic job getting the gold and silver at Oceania. Jess McManus was our special guest. Stay with us, a bit more to come.